Welcome to our live stream on whether Tesla should go ahead with bi-directional charging. This is our third live stream for our channel. And for those of you watching after the live stream, watching the recording, good to see you here as well. Please join our next live streams. So today, our topic is something that's a little bit controversial for some of the Tesla community. We're going to talk about bi-directional charging. There's actually a few terms being thrown out there. V to L, vehicle to load, V to H, vehicle to home, V to G, vehicle to grid. So today, I've got a guest with me that some of you have seen in the earlier live stream, Ezer, joining me to talk about this topic today. Welcome back to the channel, Ezer.
Well, thanks for inviting me back. Always a pleasure, Darren.
Good to have you. Good to see your library there. So Ezer is dialing in from his phone. That means I will make sure that I'll actually share your comments because he may not be able to read everything live. So I'll make sure as he shares his points, I'll bring up your key comments and key questions as well. So if you have any questions at all, just let us know in the live stream comments. Now, to kick things off, I actually raised a poll before we started today's live stream. And in this poll, I asked all of you, should Tesla vehicles have bi-directional charging? Most of you, 62% of you said yes. But this is not like an 80 or 90% yes. So let's talk a little bit about that. So let me hand it over now to Ezer to walk us through, like, what is this whole bi-directional charging? Over to you, Ezer.
Well, actually, I want to read something here that I wrote earlier before I go into explaining what this bi-directional charging is. During the safety shut-off of California, there was this major wildfires, right? Millions of Californians are like frustrated their car couldn't back up their home, right? So it's like we are now in the next generation. We have electric vehicles. These are like smart cars. It's kind of like we are now having smartphones that can do so much more than just making phone calls. And I think we are entering the era where our car can integrate more closely with our homes, including in emergency backups like the California wildfire, and just I think last month I had like a 4-hour blackout in my house, and my mom and everyone couldn't sleep. Right, I have to go into my car and like use the aircon there. But it would be great if you could have a vehicle to load. Basically, okay. Before I get into this, there are a lot of these terms being thrown around. You have V to L, which is vehicle to load, and you have V to G, vehicle to grid, and you have V to H, vehicle to home. Actually, there is a newest one now. They call it V to X. I'm not sure you heard of this. This is vehicle to everything, right? There's actually the government program that wants to make this mainstream in the future. So I don't think like in your poll, I think maybe just within the Tesla community, it seems very, like you say, some people might not like the idea, but I have no idea why. Maybe they just think Tesla doesn't have it, and therefore it's a bad idea. But I don't see any issues why you wouldn't want it. This is the future, right? So let's explain these three things. You have vehicle to grid. Now, this for many years people think is something that could change the world, right? You could have hundreds of millions of cars, each with 50, 60 kilowatt hour batteries that could power your grid, and I mean use as a battery storage to power the grid during, say, for example, nighttime, when the solar is not shining and all of that stuff. And of course, I'm not 100% sure on that usage because there are battery degradation. I think Elon Musk even said that the battery is probably one of the most expensive thing in your car, and you don't really want to degrade it over time. But recently, I've done more research. So before this, even like earlier when I talked to you, I wasn't very sure about V to G. But I've done more research into it, and there's this research done by University of Wichita or something like that. It says here, does V to G degrade your battery? So this University of Warwick, right? They did a research, and they found that it actually doesn't. It's interesting, like it's something that maybe even Tesla haven't really looked into it yet. The reason is actually very simple. When you do fast charging of your battery, it actually degrades your battery quite a lot. But when you actually power your home, for example, you're maybe using like 9 kilowatt uh, at the same time. Like you're only pushing a 9, 10. I think the strongest one right now available is like something like 7. Maybe that's the Ford or something like that. I'm not sure. So you're talking about a very small load. So it's very slow discharge. And in fact, they found battery degradation is a very complex issue. It's not just about charge cycle that we always talk about. Like we always think that, oh, there's like 1,000 charge cycle and then you're done, right? But it's not as simple as that. It's like if you were to charge your battery from say 20% to 80%, the life cycle goes longer, right? Instead of like 0 to 100 all the time. And you want me to stop?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Agree. Thumbs up means agree.
Okay. Okay. So what this university, what they did was, they did a research on what happens, and they did it for quite a while. They showed that extensive modeling results if you daily drive your cycle, and it's a consume between 21 to 38% state of charge, right? And discharging 40% to 80% of the battery, you can actually minimize the battery capacity fade by 6% and power fade by 3% over a 3-month period. So, according to the findings, the smart grid formulation can actually reduce battery pack capacity fade by up to 9% and power fade by up to 12%. So it could be just the opposite. Like, you're constantly using your battery, but in a controlled manner, actually might sustain your battery life. So we actually have to look into this more, and so it might actually work out in the future. And then the second thing we have is V to H. Now this one is not as controversial, I believe, because V to H, like just to use as backup to your home, right? You can when there's emergency, and I think most of the time, most people are only going to use it like several times a year. Even like in developed countries, maybe not even that. In my country, maybe in Malaysia, maybe a few times a year, and you have outage of say between 1 hour and 5 hours. The other day was like 5 hours. The grid, I mean, the electrical company don't even know what happened, so they eventually gave up, and they brought in diesel backup supply. So now imagine if I had my car, they don't really need that. If a lot of people in my neighborhood have a car they can just plug in, you don't need the diesel generators, correct? So in a way, it's actually better for the environment, V to H. And then the third one you have is called V to load, V to L. And basically, these are just like plug points like in your house, right? That you can put in your car. Like it could be 110 volts. It depends on how you design it. It could be 240 volts. And you can just plug any appliances that we currently have. So the difference, I think, between V to G and V to L, or even V to H, right? V to L and V to H are just simple reverse charging that you only need like a what do you call it, an inverter, right? You need you basically have an inverter going into your battery when you charge it. Now you just need the same inverter coming back out to change from DC to AC, because all our appliances are what do you call that, AC. But I suppose like some appliance eventually in the future we could all be using DC. Like your aircon now is like inverter, right? Inverter aircon is running
That's
DC motor now, so it actually has an inverter built in, because DC engines are more efficient. And when you want to deliver power through long distance, AC is more efficient. And now in the future of solar society, sustainable future, who's to say we're not changing all the appliances to DC, right? If I'm making the power from my own roof, charging my own battery, powering my own home, why do I need an inverter, right? In a sense. So now, so you have these three different ones, and the most complex would be the V to G, because it's not just a simple inverter. You need some software as well. You need some additional electronics. So it's basically the same type of inverter you use for if you have a solar array in your home. So it'll be like the solar inverter type. You need the frequency. You need to match the frequency of the grid, the voltage of the grid, the phase of the grid. So it's slightly more complex. So there could be some, like you said, there could be some controversial using V2G. Like some people may say it's too complex, or it might degrade your battery, which I now find out it might not necessarily be so. But on the other hand, V2G and V2L to me is like a no-brainer. There's just too many. Later you could ask me, I could list down, like I wrote down a whole bunch of things you can do with it.
So I just want to build on Ezer's point here. Vehicle to grid is the most complex one, where your car, your EV, is giving power to your power grid. That one, most people on Tesla do not want to do it, and most Tesla investors agree as well. There are a lot of complications. A big part of the complication is that it requires regulation. So if your country doesn't allow you to sell power back to the grid, this is a useless feature.
Correct.
And the way Tesla manufactures, they manufacture at global scale. So if you're making 20 million cars and only like 10% of your countries allow for vehicle to grid, it is not a cost-efficient thing to do. And there are better areas to prioritize. But the other two, as Ezer mentioned, vehicle to house and vehicle to load, these are localized to your own home, to your own appliances, or charging other EVs. It's less controversial. I think most people agree that it's a useful feature. The question that one of us have here is, Simon's asking in the chat, Ezer, like, how often would we actually need, let's say, vehicle to home to charge our home? You mentioned like maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times a year. Yet you
And
still believe this
yeah,
is still worth it.
yeah.
Tell me more.
I do get this question a lot, and I think this question is precisely why we need it. I know the questioner might think you might not need it because you only need like once or twice. So this would be kind of like buying insurance, life insurance, you know, something catastrophic, or medical insurance, right? Something happens to you. How often does something catastrophic happen to you? Not very often. So why do you keep paying every month? Because when it does happen, the impact is this. I mean, the damage cost could be very high. So I think if to reverse the question, I would ask so that we can put this in context. You already have the product. It's not like something that you have to build. Now, if you're talking about a power wall, you actually have to build a power wall, and it costs $10,000 now for what? Is it a 13 kilowatt hour pack,
It's
right?
6,000 in the US after federal tax
Yeah,
credit.
but if you are talking worldwide without tax credit, it's still like what, 9,500, something like that, right? Even 6,000, I would argue, is way too expensive for vast majority of people. So imagine you already have. Let's think about it. You already have a phone. Why not have a torchlight in it when you hardly use it? But when you do need it, you use it. Like when there's a power outage, I turn on my flashlight. But I hardly ever use it. But it's there when I need it, right? And in the phone, you actually literally have to build a torchlight in. But this, you already actually have the battery in your car, and it's actually a very simple inverter, to turn it into. Let me tell you something. Do you know that BYD, I think Dolphin, if I'm not mistaken, a $15,000 car has this capability. So this is not a controversial, like it's impossible to do, it costs too much money, it's nothing like that. It's just like it's there. If you were to ask the reverse question, let's say you don't ask Tesla owners. I don't know why there's 20% of Tesla owners that like, hey, I'm giving you something free and you don't want it. No, I don't want it. It's just like ridiculous. Like if it's there, if you ask any other people who are not Tesla, I guarantee your poll result will be completely different. Like, would you buy a car, an EV, with the exact same, everything else being equal, they can do V2L? Would you prefer that, or would you prefer a car that does not do that, right? So now, I understand that at the company's perspective, could it be issues with liabilities, warranty issues. Like I remember I said battery degradation. Why if people abuse it? Now I can understand from company's perspective, and
Mm,
I've been thinking about this for the last few years actually, and I'm thinking actually the solution is also pretty simple. Instead of warranting how many miles, right, which is the EV makers now do, how many miles, why not warrant how many kilowatt hour you have used? So it's really up to you. And I think most consumers, understanding that they could degrade the battery, are probably not going to use it every day for everything, right? But when you do need it, like I say, the California fire,
mm.
um, when you actually do need it, it becomes extremely important. And I think later I'll run down a list, and you see that some of them could be life and death as well, just having it or not having it. You know, do you have
I'll have
a follow-up
Ezer
question?
over here. So Ezer's talking about why wouldn't consumers want it? I think the short answer is every consumer, if it's given for free, 100% they would want it. But to your point on a business and also a Tesla investor standpoint, we do consider, like Elon often says, that the best part is no part. And having the capability is not costless. It may cost a little bit, but it's still some cost. Tesla takes pride in cost efficiency. So imagine we put a table in here on some potential cost scenarios of Tesla installing bi-directional charging in their car. It's not $0. So scenario one is $25 per car. Scenario two is $50 per car. Scenario three is $100 per car. Now, this is not vehicle to grid, which require even more complex electronics and a bi-directional wall charger. This is, let's say vehicle to load, vehicle to home. So the cost may be higher, maybe lower. We're not engineers. So if there are any engineers watching this live in a live stream or after the live stream, share in the comments. What do you think would be a closer real cost for Tesla to install vehicle to load and vehicle to home capability in every single car? In these three scenarios, it will be an incremental cost of 150, 300, or 600 million. However, Tesla is a company that's growing a lot. Percentage of cost or revenue, this may be very small. And one more comment before I hand it back to you, Ezer. Simon is saying maybe Tesla is taking an Apple approach where they wait for the industry, the supply chain to mature, let the Samsungs of the world like BYD iron it out first, then they launch a really good one. Pausing here. Over to you, Ezer.
Okay, I can answer both your question. I think this. I've also seen this uh, thing that is bandied around. The best parts is no parts. Then the best phone is no phone. Why don't you just go talk to your neighbor? Because you have to put everything in context, right? Like I say, best insurance is no insurance. This is the kind of thing like when this V2L feature is not something that is insignificant. I think it is extremely significant. Later, when I run down the list of things that you can use it, and you'll start to see how significant it is. And for a $50 cost, out of $50,000 car, that's like 1%, 0.1%, not even 1%, right? 0.1%. Actually, someone actually wrote a comment when I talked about this, and this guy actually says, this is the reason why not to buy a Tesla. A guy in Canada, right? A guy in Canada powered his house for 3 days with his Kia EV6 after a post-storm blackout. Like I said, millions of people, hundreds of millions of people in the world experience blackouts. And if they can power their home for $50 more, hey, charge us $50 more. Tesla charge you for connectors, right? They charge you more for connectors, right? So let me go to your second point. Your first point, I think, is completely invalid because this is like penny pinching, like penny wise and pound foolish. Because if just 0.2% of people decide not to buy because competitors have it and you don't, you're actually losing money, right? Now, here's the other thing about the cost itself. What if, as a now it comes back to this wait for others to implement, right? I also not very sure about that because I can see a possibility of that happening. But isn't Tesla always market themselves as the forefront of technology and they build everything themselves? And I think in the last investor day, they even say next 2 years, they're probably going to do this, right?
That's right.
So they're already building the next generation inverters already in-house, 100%, right? They're not going to buy from, Tesla is definitely not going to buy all these things from third parties. I don't think they will. Even when they implement, they're not going to buy. They're going to iterate themselves. They're going to cut costs down. And in fact, they say, we are going to be able to create this inverter, the next gen, this for the next gen car. The total package will be cheaper than the inverter they actually have today, and that includes the reverse charging. Like I said, because I have my own solar inverters, I actually bought this V to grid once because I need to connect my solar to grid. It's really not expensive. It is entire box, 11 kilowatt hour that I'm sending to the grid.
Hmm.
It's like a couple $100 maybe, you know, and they're never broken down, right? I've never looked at it. They work flawlessly, and even has built-in I think connecting to the Wi-Fi where you can check on your phone and all of those computer stuff, all the cool stuff, and it's made in China. It's like these things are not expected. I think people are just blowing this out of context, especially people who are not engineers. They don't know anything about this. They just think it's something difficult. It's nothing actually. So now think about this. At a business point of view, before everyone else have it, I think eventually in the next few years, I think every EV you either have it or people are going to like think twice buying your car. This is inevitable. I think resistance is futile. This just too. Everybody would want to have this. To be honest, this is like literally the most desirable thing in the world. If you can back up your home, and that's just like the main use case, right? Just for this, what do you call that? Peace of mind that you can back up your home, it's already extremely desirable. And if you tell people when you go and buy a car, hey, for $500 extra, will enable V2H for you or V2L. I can tell you that almost 100% is going to check that mark. And instead of losing the $50, you're actually making $450. So in a business point of view, people are actually paying $2,000 for paint jobs, right? People are paying $1,000 to wrap the car. People are paying $1,000 just to put a different wheel cap or whatever, For $500, you literally have a way to, enable. But of course, I think Tesla can do this now if they do this. But eventually, once everybody have it, it's just going to be standard. Like you probably can't charge for this. But for now, I think they can. They can make a lot of money. If you put back your chart and you put $500 a car, like 2 million cars, how much money is that? Right? That's $2 billion, right? They are making extra. Okay, but on top of that, okay, should we go to like some of the reasons I think, or do you have other questions first? Like some reasons I wrote down, the use cases. Do you want me to go through that?
I think we can again before we go there. So I think for most of the audience, the reasons for having it are clear. It's just what's the cost of having it. And so just to add some counterpoints to Ezer, if I agree with everything Ezer says, we just need a tweet. We won't need a live stream. So there are a lot of developers. I'm talking about, like I said, the upper middle class, like the top 20%. New housing estates are being built with power walls. So you see housing developers in the US, they're building Tesla solar, they're putting power walls. These are not everyone. This is not the lower class. This is like people who can afford to buy
Top
1%.
Yeah.
Even if it's not 1%, right? That's 70 million households as Tesla. So we talked about it before this live stream. This is like how Tesla's original master plan was. Build the Roadster, build a more affordable car, the S and X, then build an even more affordable car, the 3 and Y. So maybe from a business standpoint, Tesla is taking this perspective as well, with bi-directional charging, with home energy storage as well. Because again, as a business, they take time to scale. So if people are willing to pay more for a solution, that actually helps subsidizes the future generation of adopters as well, like what we're seeing happen with EVs right now. And so a question for some people ask is, why don't we just use a Powerwall? Like if someone's already buying a $100,000 Model S or Model X, Powerwall $6,000 with subsidies is cheap. It's a rounding error for them. But I think what people also realize is that a Powerwall's energy capacity is 13.5 kilowatt hours. Your standard Model Y is 77 kilowatt hours. It's 5 times more capacity in your car than a Powerwall if you're only doing a single Powerwall. Of course, if you stack and buy multiple Powerwall, it will be as much. But to Ezer's point, if your car is in home, could it be a feature? But someone at Warren would say, what if your car is not at home? Warren showed in his previous videos that some data that peak electricity usage is usually when your car is not at home. Back to you, Ezer.
You have actually several questions there. Okay, let's go through them, right? The question or the counter argument you put out is what is called a false, it's a limited choice fallacy, right? It's not like you can't have both, right? It's like there's only you can only do this A choice or B choice. Well, why can't you do both, right? So instead of just 1% of people that can have access to V2H, why not everybody who has a car? Now, and also this analogy to Tesla's master plan, build an expensive one first, make the profit, and build the cheaper one, doesn't apply here because you don't need a cheaper one now. It's already in your car. It's existing. You just have to turn it on. You're making a choice not to turn it on so that people have to buy your more expensive product. So that actually goes against Tesla's main idea of propelling us to a sustainable future. So for that 5 hours that we have to go on diesel, I counted just in my own Taman here. Actually, many Tamans was affected, right? I just drive my car around just my Taman.
Taman's like a neighborhood for those not from Malaysia.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Neighborhood.
Okay, in my neighborhood, there's probably like a few thousand, maybe 1,000 house, a few hundred house, I don't know. Anyways, there were 4 giant generators, like they come in the these 18-wheelers, they park there and they plug into the grid. There are 4 of them. And there's noise pollution. People can't sleep. It's very loud. And from 100 meters away, I can already smell the diesel. So there's pollution going on for 5 hours in the neighborhood, and they're burning fossil fuel, right? Now imagine if, okay, let's think, we're talking about eventually, right? Eventually, everyone's going to drive an EV. If everyone is plugged to the house, they don't need this generator at all, right? So we are going into a more using less fossil fuel for any emergency situations. And we're going to have this all around the world, blackouts, rolling blackouts, all of this all around the world. And if you go further in the future, and remember I said this, I think what Warren was talking about is V2G. So like I say, for that argument, I'm a little bit, I might agree at this point it's way better to have something that is always there on standby than to have something that isn't. But there is also a counter argument to that if you look further into the future. So if you look into the future where everyone is driving an EV and every car is capable of reverse charging, it doesn't matter where you park, whether you're in the office, whether you're at home, wherever it is, the infrastructure. Remember, I told you the government, there is this worldwide organization working on V2X, vehicle to everything infrastructure for the entire world. This would be like the what do you call that, the Internet of Things, right? So V2X is coming, whether you want it or not. So everywhere you go, there will be infrastructure for you to plug in your car. So imagine 1 billion cars times 77 kilowatt hour. That's so much battery energy storage that you actually don't need. The grid actually don't have to buy, right? Because it's already there. Now, of course, that comes to the degradation. And again, the initial research they're showing now, at a low, you're letting the energy out at a low wattage, right? At a low current rate, it actually helps stabilizes your battery. So we don't actually know that part of it yet. So I'm actually open-minded to that, because like for now, you're saying, okay, maybe only like 1% of people driving EV, it's just too much hassle. But when you have 100% people have EV, and you have infrastructure everywhere where everyone is plugged in all the time, and you have solar everywhere, that becomes a very, a completely different story, right? So we have to think ahead. So if you're talking about Tesla's whole mantra of bringing us to, instead of just making money, a fast buck, this is the way to go. And be a leader. Take the lead. Go for it. Right? Don't wait for others.
Do you think government should mandate at least vehicle to load in all AVs?
Um, I, I'm a capitalist, free market guy. I don't, I don't like any idea of government mandating anything. I think just pure capitalism, pure demand.
Huh.
Uh, any manufacturer that doesn't build this in is going to lose out. And even if they don't, I'm pretty sure they're going to be third party that can just hook it up for you, right? For like $500, Okay, instead of just buying a car and then you don't need to do anything with it when the manufacturer make it. Now you just like, after you buy the car, you just add it in,
Hmm.
right? But I do believe that the laws regarding a lot of things, like there are places where you're illegal to even have solar panels,
Hmm.
right?
That's
Yeah, these kind of laws that are like anti-marketplace laws, I think they need to get rid of those laws. I don't think government need to force anything because
hmm.
eventually anything that's more efficient, anything that's cheaper, anything that's better, the market will choose it and people will choose it. It will
I'm
work
curious.
itself out.
You talk about better. How can Tesla do bi-directional charging better than everyone else? Do you have any ideas?
Well, they already said that they could make it cheaper than what they actually have now, which is single direction. So they are always, because you see, because they are building these things in house,
Hmm.
right? So every time you build it in house, you don't have to pay supplier markups. So you could get the capacitors, you can get all those things at wholesale prices, right? And then you have your own machines to put it all into the board. They make their own board, right? So I've actually seen in China they have these factories that actually make all these boards, electronic boards. You can't solder it yourself anymore. They are so tiny, right? Those things. It's all done by robots, and I think they explain it pretty well. Like by creating even the junction points, the everything, the entire harness, right? The entire electronic system in the car. By making that all in house, including the software itself, I think they have a far more better user friendly and probably cut on costs, especially like copper usage. And remember that they're using e-fuels now. So
Hmm.
basically a lot of this, how you channel the power, how you balance it out all around your car, is now software control.
Hmm.
It's not hardware. You don't have to go and toggle. If you want, I go and there are a lot of toggle. If you open up your car, you see a lot of small, tiny white toggles. And you have to bring your car in to toggle things if you want to change this, change that. And now you don't have to. So I think this is the advantage that Tesla currently have, which I believe in the capitalistic market, everyone will copy it eventually. But for now, this is the advantage that Tesla has.
So Tesla can do bi-directional charging cheaper and also in a more scalable way because
Of
they are
course, I
still
mean they're building it themselves. Yeah.
hmm, they
And
are
like you say, I cannot see why. Like I cannot see how like Honda or Toyota would want to build their own. They
hmm,
they have never been they have never actually make a real car. They are actually called assemblers, right?
hmm,
They are like called box shoppers. They buy everything from everyone. They assemble everything in their plant. They don't actually build anything in the car, right? So I don't see even in the future, but I
hmm,
do see the market for manufacturers that build these kind of things, like this kind of electronics for cars, they're going to start making it more and more cheap, kind of like Qualcomm making chips for all the phones, right? So
yes.
it will come a time when all these manufacturers will not even be able to make it cheaper by themselves. They could just buy this because they have the scale. These people who concentrate on just making this product have the scale.
Hmm. Unless like to your point on Qualcomm, like let's say they do it like Apple or where they make their own in-house chips, it's not just more
Mm.
affordable, it's actually better than the public standard. And Tesla has the capability to do that as
Yeah,
they've
but not
proven.
many companies can do that. Not many companies have that capability.
That's right.
So you have to have scale first, right? So
Hmm.
like Apple has scale. Now,
Hmm.
if like Samsung has scale, so Samsung also build their own chips, right?
Yes.
But if you're just a third party, if you're LG phone maker or you're, Sony, you only sell a few million phones a year, you don't have to scale. Each of
Yeah.
these fabric, each you need how many okay, even Apple doesn't have their own fabrication plants. They just
Mm.
design it themselves and AMD makes it for them, or someone else make it for them, right?
Mm. So it sounds like if Tesla puts in bi-directional charging, let's say in their timeline 2 years from now, basically it'll force the entire industry to offer it already.
No,
Fair?
I think the industry is ahead of Tesla in this case
Mm.
because they are offering it because they don't have other things that Tesla has, and they have to make themselves look better, right? So they have to. For them, it's a selling point, right? Oh, look at even Ford. They actually advertise that, right? They say we have it, Tesla doesn't have it, right?
Yeah.
So for them, it's a selling point.
Mm.
So now, uh, for now, I think Tesla has the upper hand that even if they don't offer it, if you have to choose, if you ask me to choose, if two cars cost the same,
Mm.
one has self-driving and one has V to G, I'll choose the self-driving, right?
Yeah.
If they cost the same. Obviously, if one costs $20,000 less, then it's completely different equation, right? But
Right.
everything else being equal, uh, I think Tesla currently have the thing that people want more than V to G, right? But why not also have it? Like I say, why do you have to wait until competition come nibbling at you? You have to always stay ahead of the game.
Agree.
I see a lot of companies make this mistake that they get too complacent, and before they know it, suddenly their brand is eroded, right? So
Mm.
like let's say like even Apple, right? It's now a laughing stock. Like they are following Samsung. Now,
Mm.
unless you are an Apple fanboy and you're not actually buying Apple phone. You're actually buying into their network effect and their what do you call it, their cloud services and all that, right? You're not actually buying the phone. If you want a better phone, you go and buy Samsung. So it has become a laughing stock. So you don't want Tesla to come to a point where, oh, you don't want to buy Tesla, it's crappy car, right? You don't want to
Mm.
come to a point where Tesla is always following Samsung car. So you don't want that. You want Tesla to be ahead. If it's only $50, by God, just put the damn thing in. Everybody wants it, right? So except for there is this I think small numbers of Tesla Ubers. I think
Ah.
their opinion is always very like everything. If Tesla announce something, that's what they believe to be true. There's no way of thinking outside the box. Even
Mm.
though Elon says that you have to think fundamental terms, right? In fundamental terms, and they don't. It's like
Mm.
if Tesla doesn't implement it, therefore it's a bad thing.
Mm.
And then if Tesla implement the thing, oh now it's a good thing, right? So I don't even pay much attention because I'm the type of guy who look at the fundamentals of everything, you know. So I think we're running out of time. You want me to run down the list that I spent so much time working on? So after
Yes.
that, uh,
Let's
okay,
hear a few use cases, especially if there's
okay,
anything not top of mind that people didn't consider. That would be very helpful.
okay. So we talk mostly about emergency backup, which I think
Mm.
is just this one thing alone makes it extremely desirable, right? So now we also have cost savings, right? Because of that, so you don't have to buy a $10,000 power wall. That actually doesn't give you that much backup, anyways. Like you just did the math. It's 77 kilowatt hour versus 13.5, right? And also you're talking about only the top 1%. I already have an EV. Why can't I use it, right? So it actually cost saving and also help reduce carbon. Remember, I gave you the situation. Anytime if someone can power their home when there's an outage, you're actually saving carbon because whatever kind of thing that they got to put up to supply the additional power is probably going to run by fossil fuel, right?
Mm.
So yeah, carbon emission. You're saving on carbon emission, and also now this one is grid stabilization if you have the V to G, right?
Mm.
And just now, let's say you're just using it for peak hours. You're not using it for like. There are actually two things that people don't understand. When you get into a sustainable future, there are two uses for batteries, right? One is what the mega pack that Tesla is selling today is being used for, which is to replace the peaker plants. So these are high peak demand that they have to turn on additional gas power plant, right? Or coal power plants. And the nuclear power plants will just run 24/7. They're going to generate the base load. But every time there's a peak demand, they will turn all this up. So instead of turning all this up, they buy these giant battery packs. And this battery pack will store the base load during the day. And then they'll run this during peak hours. And because the cost of electricity is so high, they are able to buy very expensive mega packs today. And then the second, if you want to go to a fully renewable future, you are talking about backupping the entire world for at least say 4 days, right? 4 days of how many terawatt hour we use, right? I haven't. I actually did the math. I forgot. I don't have it here, but that is a massive amount of battery, and the cost of that has to come down a lot more. But it will come down eventually. But if this V to X thing comes about 10 years from now, all of these cars that's parked, and they found out that by discharging it through software in a certain way that makes sense and it doesn't degrade the battery, you solve a lot of this problem already. So it makes sense that way also, right? Okay, and then okay, you reduce pollution, noise pollution, replacing diesel generators. Believe it or not, a lot of the world still use diesel generators, right? There are farmers who use it. You have even in Indonesia, I have a lot of Indonesian friends. He has to actually buy this car battery, right, take home, and so that he can power his TV at home. Now imagine if he can use V2H, even from, let's say, electric scooters, right? I would say put it in electric scooters. You know, there's a lot of people who have no power in the world. I think the vast majority of people actually still don't have power. So even if you have a scooter, right, you can power it, and you're talking about enabling poor people all over the world to have power. So even in a kampong, right, you have several rich people in a kampong normally, and they plug in their car. Everybody has light in the entire kampong, right? Even though if there's no electric grid there, right? Everybody have light, you know. And then okay, let's see. Okay, of course, improve disaster response, like I say, like the California fire, or like let's say Florida, there's a storm that hit, right? So now you have all this capacity out there. Now it's just up to you how you want to put it up, right? If the infrastructure is already there, and then you increase consumer choice. As a capitalist, this is what I like. I like consumers to have the choice to make this decision, not the, you know. Let's say healthcare itself, right? During the vaccine, the pandemic, a lot of people are not getting the vaccine because there's no refrigerator. You cannot refrigerate. There's no power, right? There's a huge part of the world that doesn't have power. So now, if every car is an EV that you can just put a mini fridge in there and bring some vaccine around, you know, how many lives you could save? Charge your e-bike. Now, this is more like for fun. A lot of people might have a car and they want to put the e-bike behind. They go camping or do camping trips. You know, charge any things you want to bring there. Electric stove, light, even mini aircon if you want. You know, or whatever that you want to bring to your camp. Make life easy for you. You could do that. So that's just a small list. I think once this V to X comes about, they will open up so many use cases that we haven't even thought about. Yeah. So
thank you, Ezer. There's a comment in the chat from Iocona23. He says, Ezer, thank you so much for following me back on Twitter.
Who is that?
Iocona23.
Okay. You're welcome. I try to follow as many people as I can.
And also, Sheldon and Simon, thank you always for your support and your questions and your lively activity in the chat. So, Ezer and I, we grew up in Malaysia. And what's big news for a lot of Malaysians now is that Michelle Yeoh is the first Malaysian to win an Oscar for the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. What Ezer is telling us now is that bi-directional charging is also going to be everywhere all at once.
Yes.
Yeah?
In every multiverse.
In every multiverse.
Every multiverse all at once.
So this is coming. Yes, congrats, Michelle Yeoh. Malaysians asking for public holiday. Ezer,
yeah, we are very proud. I think they announced it Wednesday.
You, really?
Yeah, on the Star. I saw on the Star newspaper.
Okay, I didn't see any article. So some people have been sharing that. Let us know if there's actually a real public holiday. Now, for
Okay.
everyone listening to the live stream, Ezer has put up some very compelling points, especially for vehicle to load and vehicle to home, vehicle to grid. Maybe the technology may take some time to mature. If you have any other questions you want to ask now, you can ask us live or just let us know down in the comments below. We're happy to take questions now. I'm just seeing in the chat here, Simon saying, congrats, Michelle Yo. Thank you to both of us. I appreciate it. Ezer, any other closing words on this topic?
Hey, when I was doing my research on the battery degradation, it's just not from this university. There are other people who did this research. Nissan themselves have done this. And they say, the Nissan people say, it doesn't affect the warranty at all because they say it doesn't affect the degradation at all. So I don't know. That's what Nissan says. So I think it has to do with this slow output, right? Like slow charging. Basically, reverse also like slow reverse output, right? I think that could have something to do with it because we are always thinking like if you charge a battery at a supercharger, it degrades pretty fast. But if you charge it really slowly, it probably never degrades. I don't know. We have to look more into that, I think.
Whatever happens, the future is exciting. It means more possibilities for consumers. It, as Ezer pointed out, it helps Tesla's mission of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. The biggest part about Master Plan Part 3 is not EVs. EVs is only 21% of Master Plan Part 3. The biggest part, that 36%, is actually changing our entire grid into renewable energy. And so if the cars can eventually one day help our load, our homes, maybe even one day the grid, that has the biggest and most profound impact to the world's transition to sustainable energy. I've learned a lot preparing this live stream with you, Ezer, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you've opened many minds to this topic as well. For everyone else listening, just like how when it comes to investing, all your conviction should come from yourself. It shouldn't be borrowed. It shouldn't be just because Ezer and I say one thing that means that's the truth. Do your own critical analysis, do your own homework, do your own research. Ask, talk to people who own a Ford One F50 Lightning. How useful did they find vehicle to load, vehicle to home? What are the pros? What are the downsides? What can Tesla do better in the future? This constantly evolves. None of our perspectives are fixed. It constantly grows. Ezer, thank
Yep.
you so much for being on today's live stream.
It's a good short one today.
Yes, short and sweet. So
Yeah.
as we close the live stream, just want to give everyone else a teaser. For those who've been supporting, I've only just started doing live stream this channel less than a week ago, barely a week ago. I will have, I think one thing that's helped people to plan a little bit more is to announce my next live streams a bit more in advance. So I want to do that now based on your feedback. This weekend, I'm going to have Alexandra Mers join us. She was on our channel about 6 months ago. This will be a live stream with her. It's going to be 5 p.m. Saturday, California time, 8 a.m. Sunday, Singapore time. We'll talk about the impact of Tesla's credit rating upgrade to investment grade after 6 months. Are there actually more institutional investors buying the stock? Is it still more widely accepted? Why hasn't Moody's upgraded Tesla stock to investment grade yet? So stay tuned for that next live stream and click subscribe to watch more of these. Click the notification bell, which is even more important for live streams because pre-recorded videos can watch anytime. Live streams, you want to ask questions live, experience with us live. We'd love for you to join us. Everyone else, thank you so much. Signing off from today's broadcast.